Hello, welcome to Happie Hippie Souls. This is our first podcast. This is our first recording episode, and it's going to be a mess, but it's going to be a lovely mess, and it will be great. And we're super stoked to be here and to talk about shit.
Yeah, beautiful mess. I've had that Thea song stuck in my head all week that I'm beautiful, fucked up, gloriousness. Like, just like it is all beautiful. The beautiful parts of me, the fucked up parts of me, it's all beautiful. And it's just that little phrase has been just repeat in my brain over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I just believe that?
Yeah, how can it just be? How can I be okay with that? How can I start to be more okay with the mess and just find, for me, it's like, how do I find peace in whatever is happening? Like, it's fine. It's okay. It's all going to work out.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I'm willing to allow. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it always does, right? It really always does. And like when we look at the grand scheme of things, it's always perfectly balanced. It really is. The moments that we're in this like yucky, shitty, gross parts to the parts where it's like everything is just flowing and it's amazing and it feels so blissful. And it's just like when you zoom out, it's this beautiful balance. Like you are equal parts here and equal parts here, and you just back
Yeah.
and forth. And sometimes you're just here, and that's okay too. But when you're in this, how can you be okay with that?
Well, and I think too, I think the big thing is where are you living? Like, are you living in a moment that already happened, or are you anticipating a moment happening? Like, are you just living right now? That's always, I feel like, key. What does it take? I mean, what does it take for you to just like, we kind of, before we got on, we talked about how we organize this, and we would each have a question. Like, we would come into this podcast each with a question. And I feel like I wasn't really sure what my question was going to be. I had a thought, but this is not it. But I'm vibing with this. What does it take for you to know that you're in the moment?
Mm.
Like, because I think we can throw this around. Oh, live in your moment, live in this moment, live here. Ugh. Like, how do you know that that's happening? Like, what does that feel like for you to live, to like, you know what I mean? When was the first time that you were like, oh, this is what it's like to live in the moment?
Well, I think even if you have that, you're out. Like if you
You
have
think?
that, I think so, because that's a judgment being placed, right? If you're in the moment, you're accepting all that is, right? And so if you're like, this is it, this is what it feels like, then I think you're out. I mean, I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. I think you're in. I'm like, yes. If you're feeling it and you're like, that realization of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is about, I feel like, I mean, you could play the game and go down this hole and say everything is a judgment.
Well, and you could also go down that hole and say everything is in the moment. Even if in that moment you're living in the past or future tripping, you're still in this moment. You're just
Yeah.
doing that or that.
Yeah.
That is really, really
That's
interesting.
kind of a mind fuck.
Right?
I'm like, what a disaster. But back, so like, let's just pretend for just a minute. Like, let's go back to the original question. How, like, if you had to say something, like, if you had to say, how do you know that you're living in the moment? Like, if you were trying to describe that idea to someone, like, what words would you use to describe that?
So the way I describe it and the way I feel it really is like almost a sense of timelessness and a sense of nothing exists but this, and you just get lost in it, and it feels like eons, but it could just be seconds, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's experienced this. Like people call this like the zone of genius, or that like when you bust through that second wall and you get your second wind, or not that second wall, you bust through the wall and you get that second wind, and it just feels effortless and easy. And yeah, and that's why I kind of feel like if you have the thought I'm in it, then you're not, because then there's a sense of time, there's a sense of past and future, there's a sense of I haven't been in it and now this is in it, and that is a duality. Because when you're in the moment, there is no time, there is nothing but that moment.
Yeah.
There is just what is.
I'm such a reflector though, like in that sense of like, oh, I'll look back, like even if it's just a second ago and be like, wow, that was phenomenal.
Well, yeah, so that was past though, that's not
Yeah.
in it anymore, that was it, that
This
was
is mind blowing. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to think about it. Because while you're talking, I was like, I wanted to ask you, what activity, like, is there, because I can think of an activity, like in my mind, I can be like, this activity, I'm generally, I would say 90% of the time I'm doing this thing, I'm in it. Do you have, there's a couple. Do you have that? Like, is there a thing that is like almost, unless like shit is really crazy, I'm in this?
yeah, I have a lot of them. I mean, sex is always one that's like, whoa, right when you get there. And not even like the peak moment, not the even the orgasm, but like when you're just connected.
Mhm.
That one's really, really powerful. Drumming, singing, dancing, soaking in the water, doing anything in nature, I can get lost, just lost in time. Um, those are the big ones for me. Water, nature are really big. Singing and dancing,
Mhm.
really big for me.
Yeah. I feel like for me, horses, like horses are really like being with the horses is not always, and it depends on what's happening in my life, but they're such a reminder to me. Like if I'm not, they're like, hey, come be here, be in this moment. So I love them for that, those kind of awarenesses that they give me. And I tend to really drop in there, and I could be there for what feels like 1 minute and it can be 5 hours. Like that's kind of how I lose time. Like when I lose time, it doesn't usually I feels like a very short amount of time that I was there, but it will be hours of just doing nothing. And like cleaning stalls. And people like horse people will get what that means. Like cleaning stalls is the most zen thing for most horse people, which is really interesting because you're shoveling shit. But like you're just there, you're just in it. Like I'm just doing this, I'm just doing this thing. And it's very mindless work. So you could just kind of like find this rhythm. Like there's nothing to think about when you're doing it. And so you can just be in it. And I really enjoy it. Um, Snowboarding is another one that I actually probably wouldn't have put on my list because I haven't done it so much recently. But I took my kids up with their mom a couple weeks ago, and it was such a reminder of like just like and like the next week after that I work with some pilots who are fighter pilots, and I was asking them like, because then I had this like I was curious, right? How do they feel it? Is it mindless when they're flying, or is it like very like checklisty? And they're like, no, when you like, and he likened it to snowboarding. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I can carve. Like I get that. He's like, when you just carve in that powder and you're just like, and no one's there, and you just hear, like, you don't really hear anyone. And it can be like on a crowded mountain, and it's just like, oh, yeah. And then my like one that I go to that doesn't require me to be somewhere else is like somatic movement. Like when I'm just like, and to you, I'm not moving at all. But to me on the inside, it's like this whole, like I'm stirring a cauldron, really, really is what it feels like. It's like this just stirring up of the inside of me. And it's not like so much movement that it's like ecstatic dance for me, but it's this very light, like very, yeah.
And it's just so beautiful when you find those things. And like, here's one thing I'm gonna ask, because for me, this like singing and dancing and nature and water has been a part of my life since childhood. Like, those were my happy places. Like, when I was the freest to be me as a kid, I was singing and dancing, or I was swimming in water, or I was in nature and pretending I was a fairy or flying on a unicorn or whatever. Like, those like are from my childhood. And it's like, when I find that moment now as an adult, it's almost like I've thrown off this grown-up shell, and I've like reverted back to that inner child where I have no worries, no responsibilities, no expectations, just completely free to be me. Do you feel that way too? Because I feel like when people are like, how do I find that? How do I find that? I'm like, what did you love to do as a kid? What was it that just lit you up and you could do for hours until your parents said, hey, it's time to stop. You gotta like come home.
Yeah, I think, I mean, horses was my kid. Like, that was my kiddom, right? I feel like the horses were my teachers, and it felt so good to be with them and to just be heard and to be seen. Um, I didn't snowboard as a kid. Um, but I can imagine like escaping into your body. Like, I was an only child, so I'm really pretty comfortable in solitude. And so, yeah, I don't know that I really thought about it as like somatic movement per se at that time. Um, but my wounding happened
Mhm.
around then. So I feel like it's a fair thing. Like, if you are thinking about this question and you have discomfort, because I feel like to be in your body, you have to feel safe in your body. And so, when was a time that you felt safe in your body? But you can always find them. Like, I think as children, we're very good at finding those things. So maybe not all of your things. So for me, not all of my things showed up at that time, but absolutely horses. Like, I could totally get lost in horses, and I could totally get lost in myself too. Like, I could be by myself for a really long time before I um got worried. Like, you know what I mean? Before I was even like aware that I was by myself. And even to this day, like, I love to be by myself. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but I definitely think if I was starting down this path of trying to find the thing, I would absolutely look at what made time stop when you were a kid.
Mhm.
What made you feel like you could do it for a really long time?
Yeah. So for anybody that's watching or listening, that's like, I don't know the last time, I don't remember the last time I experienced that, or how can I get that again? what what suggestion would you give them to help them find that place where they lose that sense of timeless, the sense of where they lose the sense of time, they lose the sense of responsibility, expectation, where they can just be free and surrender to the moment? How would you guide someone to find that for them if they aren't sure?
Well, I feel like meditation is always an easy one, but I want to like asterisk this with there's lots of different types of meditation.
Mhm.
And so if you're the kind of person, I always, there's so many questions. Like, I would be like, okay, let's talk about you. What are you into?
Mhm.
And it's fun because we're kind of different, right? Like, I really like to be in my body. You kind of like to be in the stars. Like, where do you fall in that category? Like, it to me, and I'm just in real transparency, the idea of leaving my body to find peace does not make me feel peaceful. That makes my little inner self be like, whoa, hang on, we like it here. Let's come back in here. So, like, if that's you, if you feel like you like to be in your body and the idea of ecstatic dance is not for you, that's okay. Find a meditation style that's a little slower. I think yoga is always a really cool one because you are moving your body. So you're not like having to sit here and you're not having that stigma of sitting here quietly. Meditation, I mean, I did not start with yoga though. Like I just started with just doing group meditations because there's a person that's guiding you. I'm stuck here because I can't open my eyes because other people will, in my mind, other people will judge me. So I'm like, oh, well, I'm in it. I might as well be in it. So maybe getting yourself in that situation where you're a little bit stuck, like you're kind of committed to the hour of having to do this thing. And if you can kind of get in yourself into this situation where you have to do it a few times, like it's not just like a one and done and you're rolling out, I feel like that will serve you because it will kind of force you to keep doing it and really surrender to this idea that not every time are you going to have this like majestic experience, but every time you're going to just sense there's people who fall asleep. And I'm like, good for you, man. Like, that's what you needed.
You must
So
need
it's
that.
kind of a rambly question of find some kind of meditation that works for you and know that there are thousands of different types. And if you've never meditated before and you're like, that's not for me, it is for you. You just haven't found the one that works for you. And find a group. Find a group place to do it in person. I think you should start in person or go to a retreat.
Because like you said, then you are like, you can't just be like 10 minutes, like even 3 minutes, and this is stupid, and turn it off and go do something else. Nothing's happening. This is stupid. Like you're stuck. You're stuck there. And it's really interesting that because you mentioned like I do love to be out in the stars, but um it's because my mind, I'm an air sign, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm always, my brain is
Yeah.
always, ah. So for me, movement brings me back into my body and
Yeah.
stops mind from going. And so for me, it was yoga, and it was power yoga, vinyasa, flow. Like I tried Anusara and I tried Bikram, and they're very consistent. It's the same poses every single time. And as soon as my body learned the poses, my brain checked out again. So I needed the uncertainty of what's coming next so I could stay present, so that I could
Oh,
learn
yeah.
not check out and go out into the stars. But
That
then,
makes a lot of sense because I remember one time when we were doing silent meditation, you're like, he guides the same words. I'm like, well, it's silent. Of course you guys. And I'm over here like,
I know, right? We had this teacher that that taught our silent meditation, and I went 3 or 4 times, and every time it was the same sequence of cues. And the first time it was amazing. The second time I was like, I remember this. And the third time I was like, well, now I'm expecting it. And the fourth time it was like, I'm gone. I can't, I don't have anything keeping me here. And so my brain just flies away because I can just go through it,
yeah.
and then I'm done. And then what else is left? So
And I'm over here like literally like, ah, this is like the best thing that's ever happened. Like, not the best thing that's ever happened to me, but like I'm vibing. Like someone had turned on the door, like in people next door to us were having construction in their building, which is whatever. Don't feel like you have to have complete silence to meditate. But they turned on a drill and I was like, don't turn it off. Like, because it was just like swirling inside of me. And I'm just like, ah, yes. Like, this is the stuff. So just, I didn't mean to stop you, but I think it's a good realization to see that we are both experienced meditators and we both very much have preferences on how we are going to meditate and what feels good. So for us to be experienced meditators and really have the ability to drop in and still have moments where we can't, like, don't take it so serious. It's okay. You just haven't found the one.
yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and
Yeah.
still, there's still times where I sit there and I'm like, like still, it still happens. And then there's times where it's like I'm immediately and I have this incredible experience, and I go places and I have visions and downloads and upgrades, and but it's not every day.
And then there's sometimes that I think I'm just very at peace. Like whatever emotion I'm like I'm very much a fiery soul. Like when I get like, whoo, I have to just like, okay, you guys gotta leave me alone. When I get that like fire build up in my belly and I get frustrated and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna go sit. I don't go and sit and have this like out of body experience or this deep inner body sensations. I just find like a little bit of like calm the fuck down. Like it's Yogi Brian, right? He says, sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. And if you don't like fuck, then I'm not for you. Probably the same here. Like, if that offends you, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I don't mean to offend you, but it's a beautiful word and it means a lot of things. It's very dynamic. So know that it doesn't also have to be like, I don't always have those. I don't have those either way. There's sometimes where I'm not also like,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Where like it's 10 minutes and it was 10 minutes. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's right.
Check.
Cool.
I mean, back to the first question, the question that we were talking about, like that, like how do you know when you're in that moment that where it's like, oh, this is it, right? And whether you believe that like labeling it this is not then it or whatever, it doesn't matter. But what's been showing up for me this week in sessions, like every session this week that I've had, the concept of pain and suffering, right? And the Buddhist belief that pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. And the concept that's really showing up for me recently is that the only reason we actually suffer is because we believe in time. We believe in a concept of time, right? So like that's kind of where my thought process of when I go, oh, this is it, this is the moment, means I'm not in it anymore, because now I'm going, well, that wasn't it, and that was it before, and so this is it again. And that's kind of like a time thing, maybe.
Carolyn Mess, and I love her. Read all of her books. Okay, just Carolyn Mess, just buy them all. Amazon, we have I have like an Amazon store front, like we do for the studio. I'm sure we'll link it somewhere, whatever, because Jenny and I talk about books all the time. I don't remember what book it was that she said this, but I think it really connects. And I don't know if you know the thing I'm about to say. Weightlessness. Weightlessness. Not waiting helps you find weightlessness. And that is the space that you heal. And it was like when I heard her say that for the first time, I rewinded. I was like, "Oh, hold on, wait, what did you say?"
Not waiting is
when you're not waiting, you create weightlessness in your body. Therefore, you can heal and you can remove, and energy is flowing. So when you can get to this space of you're not waiting for the past to come or the present to be, you are here, and it's this weightless sensation. And for me, I know that I'm in a weightlessness when I feel there's like a tingling feeling that I feel in my body that's very like and I'm very like my body feels very, there's not a word in the American language that just, or any language besides light language, that can describe this sensation. And I've been talking about it a ton in my meditation classes. You know, when you know, it's like an orgasm. I can't tell you what an orgasm feels like. You know when you've had one, and you know when you haven't. And if you're questioning, it hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened.
Like, that's all I can tell you is like, if you're questioning if it happened for you, it didn't. You know. And that's how these vibrationy sensations feel like, you know, when you've had it. And when you can find this moment of weightlessness, and that's what I think you're describing is like, and she described it in this way, the space of like, when you're, it's in no time. But it's not about time like how we think about time, as in like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever. It's about this weightless period. You're not waiting. You don't have constriction in your body. Therefore, you're not waiting. And constriction, so if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling, pain is such a good one. I really love to guide people to lean into their pain so they can soften it. And that softening feeling creates that weightlessness because you're releasing the constriction. And to me, like, this is so heady. And I'm like hoping you're following what I'm saying because it's like heady, but also feely at the same time. And there's not really like smarty words for it, or there is, and I don't know them because I'm like, just feeling in my body and I like to keep it simple.
Well, I also think not even trying to soften the pain, sometimes surrendering to it. Like I remember I had this headache once and I had done all the things. Like, is it this? Is it this? I've, taken my water and my supplements and my essential oils. And did I breathe? And did I go upside down? And like all these things. And it was just like this headache. And finally I was like, well, stop resisting and just
Yeah.
surrender to the headache. And then the headache took over my whole body and it felt orgasmic.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when I think of softening, I think of like something is like this. And when I soften, it can go wherever it needs to go. There's not the constriction in my body. Yeah, soften, surrender. I think they're interchangeable in this situation. Like, think of like if you're watching us, I like I want you to just go like cup air into your hands and then like hold it and then just open your hands. Like and just kind of play with that idea. Like it's it's very interesting. I think that's where drums can be really helpful because the vibration of the drum can help you soften. And sometimes, like this last week, I was using Jen's drum at class, and that drum is like a real boom, like it is a whopper, man. And I was using it on someone else, and I popped it like over top of her, and she was like, and then after that, she's like, it scared me for a second, but then I was really able to soften. So sometimes, like you say, you need to really like, and then you can. So you'll hear like if you ever listen to a body relaxation, there's a style of that where they'll invite you to constrict a ton and then soften. And it's yeah, I'm gonna surrender that. This pain just fucking sucks. And then I'm gonna just let it go where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is really, really interesting. Because it's like as we talk about this moment and the times that I've been there, it's like this, it's like this eternal breath that breathes you. And I don't know if that makes any sense because I'm not aware of inhaling and exhaling. I always feel full, but I always feel relaxed at the same time. It's like this simultaneous push and pull that's happening, the expansion and contraction that's happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can ever even really explain it. I think it's like you said, it's like an orgasm. You know if you've had one.
you know, you know. But I feel like having a thought of like for me there is this awareness of my breath not being there, like there's an absence of my breath too, and I think that's also a beautiful awareness is like what is also not there. And I feel like seldom, and I don't know, like I'm thinking to myself, the thing I want to say is seldom do I think about like feelings or emotions, like it's really not about that, but it's not about that because I think I have been in that space of being in this moment, but things have been happening in my brain. Like and it's just like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, when I go into like a body movement, right? I'm definitely thinking, oh, you it feels really good right here. I'm thinking that. There's stuff happening here and I'm thinking that. So what I want to say here is don't hunt for empty. In fact, that seldom
It's
works for you because it actually freaks people out. Like when they get to that, every single time I have guided someone, like, and they go to the void of nothing, they are freaking out. Okay. And it is not generally the first few times you do that, it's not peaceful. It's very annoying.
right. And I think there's this huge myth around meditation that I have to shut my brain up.
Yeah.
Like STFU, would you already? And it's just like and that I think is one thing that really stops a lot of people from trying. Like, seriously, that is the number one complaint I get at meditation. Like,
Always.
I
Yeah.
just can't shut my brain off. And I'm like, good job, you're not brain dead. Like, high five, your brain's doing its job. And
Stuff's happening.
so the purpose of meditation isn't to shut the brain off and to find silence in the mind.
Mhm.
And however that is an effect, it does happen sometimes, but not
It
all.
does. I think you can absolutely go into that void space.
Yeah. But the purpose of meditation is to learn to not attach to the thoughts and ideas, to go identify with the thoughts and ideas. In fact, here we go with Buddha again. And the whole like concept of suffering is believing in time and attachment, attaching to this time that I'm having this thought, I believe this thing, therefore I am this, and that sucks. So letting like, it's like my favorite meditation for this one is like a train station. And imagine you're sitting at a train station and all the trains are coming and going, and some are sitting and some go whoa right through. And it's like a thought that just phew, it was like, what was that? And then some of those thoughts just sit there, and it's like that song that just repeats over and over and over and over in your head, and you're like, oh, shut up. And then sometimes you jump on a train and take it down into some land and jump on another train and then another train and another. You're like, wait, no, back to the train station,
Mhm.
because trains of thought are going to happen, but those trains of thought are not you. And so learning to not attach to them and going, okay, I'm having a thought, and even going, oh, there's a train. Oh, there's a train. Oh, there's a thought. There's a thought. There's a thought. Ooh, that one really triggered a sensation in my body. That was interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Instead of going, oh, I have this thought. Now I have this feeling. And now I have this thing. And, ah, something's wrong with me and I got to fix it.
Yeah, I feel like on that connection, people ask me, how do you start down this road of contemplation, right? Which is why I think it's really important that we start these podcasts with that questions to ask yourself.
Mhm.
I feel like also, what is your intention for meditation? That's so important too. Like when you're picking, and we really kind of went down this rabbit hole of meditation. And by the reason that we're doing this is because it's a way that everyone can find into this moment, right? It's a way to train yourself into this. So, whatever, this is not unrelated if you've lost track of how we got here. Ask yourself what your intention is. And if you don't know what your intention is, pull a card. Give yourself something, if especially if you're new, give yourself something to attach to a little bit, because then you're going to have some kind of way forward. And some of those can be malas, some of them can be reading a card, some of them can be picking a guided meditation, drumming, listening to a song. Like, give yourself something, especially at the beginning, to anchor to just a little bit, like the train station. But what you do with that, if you have different intentions, because while Jenny was talking, I was like, but then you could go on the train. And this is where us hippie people really can confuse people, because you're like, you could do this or you could do that. But what is your intention? So, is your intention, for me, if I were to be watching, like I'm sitting here and I'm Rolodexing, I call it Rolodexing, like just when like these of thoughts are coming, right? And I'm Rolodexing and I'm like, okay, what is the I'm a pattern person too. So what is the pattern of this Rolodex? Is it mostly good or is it mostly bad? Okay. Pick one, good or bad. Okay, I'm gonna pick bad because I want to clear, right? And then I'll pick good after to reinforce, whatever. But you could go the other way too. If you want to like get yourself some juju, bring in the good before you look at the bad. I've guided people both ways. It depends on you and who you are and how long you've been doing it or what your intention is. Maybe your intention is today was shit and I don't want to bring up more shit. So I'm going to go good. Or I'm in a place and my intention today was to heal some like child shit or some last week shit or some whatever, 5 lifetimes ago shit, whatever your thing is that you're doing. And then, okay, bring those in and then say, okay, what memory does create a sensation in my body? What memory is my body responding to? And how can I soften that part of my body? How can I let that memory, that thought pattern take me on the train? where is it taking me to? Where my body is it? I'm a body person, so I'm going to go where my body is it taking me to. But if you're an experienced outside visual kind of person, where the hell is it taking me? Like, am I going to a river? Am I going to a city? Am I going to a house? Am I going to some faraway land that I've never been to in my entire life, this life? You know what I mean? Let that thing take you.
Yeah.
There's so many answers, but I think it starts with finding an anchor of intention to get yourself like, what are you wanting to do?
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of so people that are like just starting, or people that are like feeling or coming to a block, right? Because this happened to me this last 2 weeks. I came to a block and I just wanted someone to tell me what the fuck to do. Just do this, then this, then this, then this, right? So I mean, this even happens for experienced meditators. Like 2 decades, I've got 2 decades of meditation practice under my belt, and I still come up to things where I'm like, does someone tell me what to do? And this is where we can be really frustrating, and it can be really like, oh, because there is no right or wrong. There really isn't, because like, and there's no bad meditation, there's no bad session, because you show up, you're doing it, and whatever's showing up is what needs to show up for you so you can
Yeah.
that next level. But it can be really frustrating sometimes, and but that's part of the process. Like sometimes you have to struggle, so that, I mean, that's like the whole purpose of weight training, right? I'm going to lift this weight that's heavier than I normally lift so I can tear down these muscles so that when they build back together, they're stronger.
Yeah.
When whether you're new and you're struggling and you're like, someone just tell me, well, just like, there's no right or wrong. You can't fuck it up. Like, you really can't fuck it up, I promise. And when you are, even that frustration and that irritation is all part of the process, right? Because it's even this beautiful thing that's yucky over here, but eventually it's going to come over here and then it's going to swing back again, right? Just like the natural rhythm of the universe, the pendulum swings however far it goes to one side, it's got to go at least as far to the other side.
Yeah.
So like, that's where it does get really hard. And that's why it is nice to go to a place where someone is guiding for you, whether that's yoga, whether it's breath work, whether it's meditation or dance, or it's, I mean, an art class, right? I mean, it really doesn't matter. Something that is like, ooh, that's really intriguing to me, that you kind of are forced to stay and follow through and deal with the frustration along the way, and then overcome it at the end or not, and learn the lesson from it either way.
Yeah. A lot of people will come. I mean, I have so many people I've seen start meditation and then within a month they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever happened to me. And I love when I get someone who's brand new who comes to my class. Doesn't happen as much anymore. Now people are like, it's not so much shock and awe anymore. But I remember at the beginning when I first started teaching, and maybe there are people who feel this way who haven't committed yet, but we teach hour long, like our classes are 45 minutes to an hour. You're meditating likely for 30 plus minutes. And that can feel like, oh, but it really takes a minute to turn your brain off. I call it the drop in. Like the drop in takes the more time than anything of the whole meditation. If I'm guiding a meditation, there's three parts, right? We have the drop in, we have the healing moment, which is usually the tiniest amount of time. And then we have the like, I call it connection to the golden ray, but like this connection back and this like refilling part of you.
I call it
And
the integration part.
integrate, yeah, whatever you want to call it. There's people will say thousands of different words, but if you just think about it as like three phases, right, to a meditation, the drop in is the most, it is the most, and it's mostly for me getting you to feel safe in this situation, safe in this body, safe in where we're going. If we are preparing to leave your body, like safe in that space and preparing your body for this sort of thing. And part of that preparation of your body is kind of slowing these thoughts. And if you think you're going to get there in 3 minutes, like I don't suggest that. I never suggest to someone who's first starting, like just meditate for 3 minutes. Like if you're doing a really formal job of meditating and you're really sitting in it, my suggestion would be to go to a class that's an hour and be in that.
Yeah. The 3 minutes is really good for like, oh my God, I'm feeling so chaotic and panicky right now. Okay, I'm just gonna like
Yeah.
just for like 3 minutes because I don't got time. Ain't nobody got time for meditation.
Yeah.
3 minutes. I got 3 minutes where I can just like, okay. Right. Because
But then again, that goes into intention setting, right? Your intention is to just find your breath at that point.
center. Yeah.
If you're going into this intention of like, I want to be weightless and I want to have this moment of weightlessness, back to the very, very most original question, to me, and again, there's all kinds of people who give different things, but if you're starting, give yourself time. Ultimately, that's what I mean. Give yourself time.
Mhm.
Don't think you're going to get there in 1 minute. And don't be upset if you don't.
Yeah. Or the first meditation or the
Yeah.
21st or the 101st or
Yeah.
like it really it takes it really is a practice. I mean, 20 years. I've been practicing for 20 years.
Mhm.
How was my last 2 weeks been, Jasmine? Have I been all blissed out and zen and enlightened? I've been
Yeah.
in hell. It has been hell. It happens, but it's also like part of the evolution process, right? Like, whoa, okay, I'm lifting some heavier weights and they really fucking hurt right now. But
Yeah.
when those muscles grow back together, what's going to happen? I don't know.
So you're just going to come out of this whole situation. And we named this podcast Happy Hippie Soul because, you know, our souls want to be happy. They want to feel good. And it doesn't have to be hard all the time. There are hard moments, but as Jenny always says, enlightenment literally means to lighten up. And that's what we've been talking about. How do you find this weightlessness? How do you lighten up your body? And it is, I think it is in the sense of organizing your intention, organizing your thoughts, and trying to execute those in the best way you can.
Well, our tagline for the podcast is serious shit doesn't, or spiritual shit doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah.
Like Happy Hippie Souls would like, we don't have to take life so fucking seriously.
Yeah.
And even like, we talk about setting an intention and sometimes even that intention goes out the window and you go a completely different direction. So like set that intention that helps set you up for that success and then let go of expectations of the outcome
Mm-hmm.
and just allow it to take you where you're supposed to go. And that's that like surrender piece. That's that we're not going to resist, we're not going to force, we're not going to try, we're just going to allow. And like when you really find that, that is that moment of like, oh, everything is amazing, even if it's my headache, right? That is hurting me so bad. When I stop resisting the headache and I surrender into it, then the headache overtakes. It was like it overtook my whole aura. And I felt the vibration of my headache all the way out and around me. And it was just like this, and then it was gone. Like,
Physical pain is so fascinating. That's a topic for a whole nother podcast. But yeah, what does your physical pain mean? I love it. I love it. I love it.
I feel complete.
I feel complete. I feel like we've talked about what we needed to talk about today. And I hope of all the things that you take, if I had to say one thing that I hope you take out of this conversation, obviously whatever you needed, but set an intention and then surrender. And then if you go a different direction and it turns into a shit show, laugh about it because it's fine. And you tried. Like, it's okay. It's okay to mess up. Go into a childlike play. Kids all the time. We watch children, they set an intention to do something. It may or may not work out. And then we laugh. And then we go on to the next thing and we try it again, or we try it a little bit different. And that's okay. Don't take it so serious. Just find the weightlessness. Weightlessness does not come from being serious. So I'm just going to, that's a solid no, it does not happen. So
I had one thing that I hope they take away from today. What would that be? curiosity over criticism. Like we didn't talk about this, but like, I mean, really, I mean, I guess we kind of did because
I
not,
think we did, just maybe not like so like
yeah, just really not like not going identifying and attaching with thoughts and instead of like beating yourself up and getting so frustrated and I got to figure that like how can you bring in more curiosity to that instead of criticism. Curiosity over criticism, curiosity over criticism. That's interesting. I'm having that thought. That's interesting. I'm having that sensation. That's interesting. I wonder what that means. I wonder what if, and what else is possible. And, hmm,
yeah.
like just, and like Jasmine says, be playful with it. Be playful with it. You can't fuck it up.
Well,
Amen.
amen. All right, friends, we love you so much. Thanks for listening to our first ever episode of the Happy Hippie Souls. And we will see you again next week, I think is the plan. Weekly. We'll see. Don't get too excited if it doesn't happen.
Our hippie.
Follow us up. We are Jennie and Jasmine. We're doing the best we can.
Love ya.